My sister screamed, "You're grounded until you apologize to your brother-in-law." My parents laughed. I felt humiliated, but I just said, "Fine." Next morning, my room was empty, and then the family lawyer burst in. Shaking, saying, "Ma'am, what did you do?" My sister shrieked, "You'll be grounded until you apologize to your brother-in-law." My parents just laughed. My face burned, but all I said was, "All right." The next morning, my room was empty, and moments later, our family attorney called, voice trembling, "Ma'am, what have you done?" The air in the dining room had been thick with unspoken tension, a familiar hum beneath the polite chatter, but it had finally snapped when I refused to serve dessert to Marcus. That single act of defiance from me, the youngest daughter, the one who'd spent 28 years making everyone comfortable, shattered their carefully constructed reality. My sister, Olivia, shot up so fast her chair scraped the hardwood. "You'll be grounded until you apologize to your brother-in-law," she shrieked across the dining room, her face crimson, spittle flying as she pointed a manicured finger right at my chest. My parents, Helen and Robert, erupted. Dad slapped the table, Mom covered her mouth with a napkin, shoulders shaking with amusement. They found Olivia's threat hysterical. Why? Because I owned the very house they were sitting in. Every piece of furniture, every painting, every tile under their feet belonged to me. My face burned with humiliation as 15 pairs of eyes stared, wide and expectant, from around the extended family table. Cousins, aunts, uncles, even Olivia's 2 children watched the spectacle. My brother-in-law, Marcus, just leaned back, a smug expression on his face that twisted my stomach. I stood slowly, carefully placed my napkin beside my untouched plate, and met Olivia's furious gaze with a calm I absolutely did not feel. "All right." That single phrase hung in the air, thick like smoke. No one questioned it. Why would they? They'd heard me give in 1,000 times before. Olivia smiled, triumphant, settling back down, already turning to Marcus to stroke his ego. My parents picked up their conversation as if nothing had happened. The chatter gradually rose to normal levels. I quietly excused myself and walked upstairs to my bedroom. No one followed. No one checked on me. They never did. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning my exit for 6 months. Every document was in perfect order inside my safe. Every account had been quietly transferred. Every loose end had been methodically tied. This dinner was meant to be my farewell, though only I knew it. Marcus had pushed me too far just 3 days prior. He'd cornered me in my own kitchen, demanding I invest in his failing construction company, claiming family obligation. When I refused, he grabbed my wrist, hard enough to leave bruises, and called me selfish. Olivia had walked in on the tail end, and somehow, she'd twisted the narrative, painting me as the aggressor. Olivia had always been the golden child, beautiful, charming, married with 2 kids by 25. She dropped out of college to follow Marcus to another state, and when his business ventures consistently failed, they'd moved back home, straight into my house. I'd bought this property 5 years ago with money from my software development career. The down payment came from savings I'd accumulated working 60-hour weeks at a tech startup that eventually went public. My stock options had made me wealthy by 30, though I lived modestly. When Olivia's marriage hit financial trouble 2 years ago, Mom had called, crying. "Could you help?" Just temporarily? Temporarily had stretched into 24 months. Olivia, Marcus, and their children occupied the entire second floor. My parents had their own home across town, but they spent most evenings here because Olivia preferred having help with the kids. My extended family felt free to drop by anytime because Olivia loved playing hostess in my dining room. I'd been cooking, cleaning, paying utilities, covering groceries, and funding the children's activities, all while working remotely from my converted attic office. Marcus hadn't found steady employment in 18 months. Olivia had decided motherhood meant she couldn't possibly work outside the home. My parents contributed nothing but criticism about how I should be more generous with my success. The dessert incident was trivial compared to months of accumulated resentment. Marcus had complained that I bought regular ice cream instead of the premium brand he preferred. When I suggested he could buy his own groceries, Olivia had exploded. Now, I packed methodically. 3 suitcases held everything I truly valued: clothes, my laptop, external hard drives, important documents, family photos I'd digitized, and grandmother's jewelry she'd left specifically to me. Everything else could stay or rot. My phone buzzed with a text from my attorney, David Miller. Everything ready on my end. The eviction notices had been prepared weeks ago. All utilities would transfer out of my name tomorrow morning. The property management company had keys and instructions. My new apartment across the state was ready for immediate occupancy. I'd secured a position at a prestigious tech firm in Austin, a city where no one in my family had connections. The salary was substantial. The signing bonus had already cleared. My new life was waiting. At midnight, I carried my suitcases down the back stairs, which led directly to the garage. My car was already packed with boxes I'd been smuggling out over the past week. No one had noticed because no one ever paid attention to my comings and goings. I left 3 envelopes on the kitchen counter, one addressed to Olivia, one to my parents, and one to Marcus. Inside each was an eviction notice, granting them exactly 30 days to vacate the premises, the legal minimum required in our state. The house would be listed for sale immediately. All proceeds would belong solely to me, as the only name on the deed. My letter to Olivia was brief: you wanted me grounded. Consider this my permanent departure. The apology you demanded won't be coming. The free housing you've enjoyed is ending. I'm done being your doormat. Figure out your own life. I drove through the night, stopping only for gas and coffee. By dawn, I was 500 miles away, checking into a hotel while my new apartment's utilities were activated. My phone remained off. I'd get a new number later today. Messages started flooding in around 7 in the morning, though I didn't see them until I finally turned on my old phone just to disable it. 53 missed calls, 87 text messages, 17 voicemails. Olivia's texts evolved from confusion to rage to panic. "Where are you?" became "How dare you abandon us," which transformed into "Please come back. We can talk about this." My parents' messages were indignant. "How could you do this to family? What would people think? We raised you better than this." They demanded I return immediately and apologize for this childish stunt. Then David's message came through, timestamped 8:15 a.m. Olivia called me screaming about the eviction notice. "Your mother tried to claim you're mentally unwell and this is invalid. I explained very clearly that you're fully competent and this is entirely legal. Your father threatened to sue. I reminded him that he has no legal standing. Your sister is apparently hysterical. Stay strong. You made the right choice." 30 minutes later, David sent a follow-up: "Your sister just showed up at my office with your mother. They're demanding to know your location." I obviously refused to disclose anything. "Your mother tried to claim there's a family emergency." I didn't budge. Olivia broke down crying in my waiting room. Security had to escort them out when they wouldn't leave. I felt guilty for approximately 5 seconds. Then I remembered Marcus's hand around my wrist. Olivia's constant demands. My parents' laughter at the dinner table. The guilt evaporated. Days turned into weeks. The messages never stopped completely, but they decreased in frequency. Olivia tried different tactics: anger, "You're destroying this family." Manipulation, "The kids cry for you every night." Bargaining, "What if Marcus gets a job? Would you reconsider?" Self-pity, "I can't believe my own sister hates me." My parents enlisted extended family to contact me. Aunt Carol called me selfish. Uncle Frank said I was breaking Mom's heart. Cousin Sophia posted vague comments on social media about people who abandon their families. I blocked them systematically. The first month in Austin was an adjustment that tested my resolve daily. My new apartment occupied the third floor of a converted brownstone in the South Congress neighborhood. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a tree-lined street where coffee shops and bookstores clustered together. The space felt enormous compared to my cramped attic office back home. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a kitchen with actual counter space, and a balcony where morning light spilled through like honey. I furnished it slowly, deliberately. Each piece was chosen because I loved it, not because it was practical for hosting family dinners or accommodating overnight guests. A velvet reading chair in deep emerald green. A desk made from reclaimed wood that cost more than I'd ever have spent on furniture. Art prints from local galleries featuring abstract designs that spoke to something wordless inside me. Work consumed my attention in the best possible way. The tech firm, Cascade Innovations, operated at the cutting edge of cloud infrastructure development. My role as senior software architect meant designing systems that would handle millions of transactions daily. The technical challenges engaged parts of my brain that had atrophied during years of family caretaking. My team lead, Neha Sharma, was everything a manager should be. She recognized talent, distributed work fairly, and actually listened during meetings. The first time she asked my opinion on a major architectural decision, I almost looked around to see who she was really addressing. Nobody interrupted me when I spoke. Nobody dismissed my expertise. Nobody expected me to take notes or order lunch for the group. "You've got solid instincts," Neha told me after a successful presentation to the executive team. "Keep trusting them. You're going places here." The validation felt foreign and wonderful. For years, my technical expertise had been invisible to my family. They'd seen my income as a resource to exploit, but never understood the work behind it. Marcus had once asked if I could just quickly build him a website for his construction company, as if a professional site was something you threw together during a lunch break. My colleague, Ethan Green, became an unexpected friend. He'd noticed me eating alone in the cafeteria during my second week and simply sat down across from me. No agenda, no small talk about weekend plans or family obligations. He launched straight into a passionate explanation of a database optimization problem he'd been wrestling with. "Sorry," he said after 10 minutes of technical rambling. "My wife says I need to work on social skills. I should have asked about your day first or something." "Please don't," I replied. "This is the best conversation I've had in months." Ethan introduced me to the Friday Afternoon Coding Club, an informal gathering where developers worked on personal projects together. I'd forgotten what it felt like to code purely for enjoyment rather than obligation. I started building a mobile app for tracking hiking trails, complete with elevation profiles and difficulty ratings. Nobody needed it. Nobody demanded it. Nobody would benefit from it except me. The freedom was intoxicating. Through Ethan, I met his wife Chloe, a botanist who worked at Austin's Botanical Garden. She invited me to join her weekend plant identification walks. We'd spend hours wandering Zilker Park, and Chloe would explain the ecosystem with contagious enthusiasm. She never asked probing questions about my past or why I'd moved to Austin alone. Some people understand that starting fresh means leaving certain stories behind. Therapy started 6 weeks after my arrival. I'd been having nightmares where I returned to the house to find Olivia had changed all the locks. Or dreams where I was cooking for 30 people who kept appearing at the dinner table, multiplying endlessly while my pantry emptied. I'd wake up gasping, Pepper's concerned face inches from mine. Dr. Eleanor Stone's office occupied a quiet building near Zilker Park. She specialized in family trauma and boundary issues. Our first session, I cried for 40 minutes straight while explaining the dinner incident, Marcus's grab, Olivia's betrayal, my parents' complicity. "You're describing a family system where you are assigned the role of emotional and financial caretaker," Dr. Stone said gently. "That role probably started long before Olivia moved into your house." She was right. Digging through my childhood memories revealed patterns I'd been too close to see. I was 8 when Dad lost his job and Mom started working double shifts. Olivia was 11 and suddenly became my responsibility. Make sure she does her homework. Walk her to school. Pack both our lunches. Don't bother Mom, she's tired. Don't upset Dad, he's stressed. By age 12, I was managing the household budget because Dad would spend grocery money on lottery tickets. I learned to hide cash, to forge his signature on school forms, to call him in sick for parent-teacher conferences he'd forget. Olivia was the fun daughter who brought home boyfriends and went to parties. I was the reliable one who made sure the utility bills got paid. You were parentified, Dr. Stone explained. Children forced into adult roles learn that their value comes from usefulness. Love becomes transactional. You give, others take, and you convince yourself that's what family means. The realization hurt worse than Olivia's screaming had. My entire identity was built around being needed. When I set boundaries, I didn't just threaten their comfort, I threatened my own sense of worth. Learning to receive without giving is going to be your hardest work, Dr. Stone said. You'll need to practice letting people care about you without calculating what you owe them. The hiking group that Chloe introduced me to became my testing ground. 8 regulars met every Sunday to explore different trails around Texas. They were teachers, nurses, accountants, artists, people with full lives who chose to spend their free time outdoors. The first time someone, Sarah, offered me a ride because my car was in the shop, I instinctively declined. Then I forced myself to accept. The entire drive, I mentally cataloged ways to repay the favor. Buy her coffee next time? Offer gas money? Plan a harder trail she'd enjoy? You're doing it again, Chloe observed when I confessed my thought spiral later. Keeping score. Just let Sarah give you a ride because she wanted to help. Breaking the habit took months. Someone would bring extra snacks to share, and I'd have to physically restrain myself from bringing double the amount next time. The group gave freely without expectation of return. Gradually, I learned to do the same. David called in mid-November with an update about the house. You've got multiple offers above asking price. There's a bidding war happening. I think we can get you another $20,000 if we're patient. Take the highest current offer, I told him. I want this finished. Olivia has been calling my office repeatedly. She's claiming you're obligated to give her a portion of the sale proceeds since she lived there for 2 years. Is there any legal basis for that claim? Absolutely none. She paid no rent, contributed nothing to the mortgage or maintenance, and has no ownership stake. I've told her this 4 times, but she keeps calling. Send her a cease and desist letter. If she contacts you again after that, file for harassment. David paused. You've gotten tougher. I've gotten healthier, I corrected. There's a difference. My parents' lawsuit crawled through the court system like a wounded animal. Their attorney, a rumpled man named Walter Reed, was clearly incompetent, filing motions with basic errors and missing deadlines. David suspected they'd hired someone cheap who was milking them for fees while knowing the case was doomed. The deposition was scheduled for early December. I flew back to my home state for exactly 36 hours, staying in a hotel near David's office. The familiar streets felt alien now, like visiting a place you'd only seen in photographs. Mom and Dad sat across the conference table, looking older than I remembered. Mom's hair had gone gray at the temples. Dad had developed a tremor in his left hand. They wouldn't meet my eyes when I entered the room. Walter Reed asked predictable questions. Had I promised them housing? No. Had they contributed financially to the property? No. Had we discussed long-term living arrangements? No. Did I have any written agreements with them? No. Then Reed tried a different angle. Isn't it true that you purchased this property specifically so your family could live together? No. I purchased the property as an investment and personal residence. My sister's family moved in 2 years ago on a temporary basis that became permanent without my consent. Wasn't there an implicit understanding that family helps family? David interjected smoothly. The question calls for speculation about implicit understandings. My client's explicit communication was that the arrangement was temporary. Reed fumbled through his notes. Your parents claim you verbally agreed they could use the home for family gatherings indefinitely. They hosted gatherings without asking my permission. I tolerated it to keep peace. Tolerance is an agreement, Mom finally spoke, her voice shaking. How can you sit there and lie like this? We're your parents. This is a legal proceeding, Mrs. Williams, David said firmly. Please direct questions through counsel. The deposition lasted 3 hours. By the end, Reed looked defeated. He'd probably already advised my parents to drop the case, but they were too stubborn to listen. Walking out of that building, I felt lighter than I had in years. The last thread connecting me to that old life was about to be severed. Soon, there would be no shared property, no legal entanglements, nothing but the biology that neither of us could change. I flew back to Austin that evening and went straight to the hiking group's weekly meetup at a downtown brewery. Ethan waved me over to a crowded table where everyone was arguing cheerfully about whether Guadalupe Peak or Emery Peak offered better winter views. How was your trip? He asked quietly while the others debated. Necessary, I said. And final? He nodded, understanding without needing details. That was a gift of new friendships. They existed in the present, unburdened by history. Christmas approached with surprising speed. My first holiday season alone in decades. No cooking for 15 people. No mediating arguments about whose turn it was to say grace. No hiding in the kitchen while Olivia played perfect hostess with my food and my dishes. Chloe invited me to her family's Christmas Eve dinner, but I declined gently. I needed to prove to myself that being alone wasn't the same as being lonely. Instead, I volunteered at a homeless shelter, serving meals to people who had nowhere else to go. Many were families, mothers with children, elderly couples, young men who'd aged out of foster care. A woman about my age sat in the corner with 2 elementary-age kids. She reminded me painfully of Olivia, though her exhaustion seemed bone-deep in a way Olivia's never had. When I brought her a plate, she looked up with such profound gratitude that I had to turn away. Thank you, she whispered. The kids were so hungry. I wanted to give her money, resources, solutions. Instead, I just squeezed her shoulder and moved to the next table. Some problems couldn't be fixed by one person's generosity. Some people needed systemic support, not individual rescue. Understanding that distinction was part of my healing. New Year's found me on my balcony with Pepper, watching fireworks explode over Lady Bird Lake. My phone buzzed with messages from the hiking group, from Neha checking in, from Ethan sending a ridiculous meme about New Year's resolutions. Nothing from my family. The silence felt appropriate. I'd started the previous year trapped in a house full of people who treated me like an ATM and a servant. I was ending this year in a city that felt like home, surrounded by people who saw me as a whole person. The contrast was staggering. We made it, I told Pepper, scratching behind her ears. We actually made it. January brought news that my parents had finally dropped their lawsuit. David emailed the dismissal paperwork with a note, their broken Stanley Pierce. Stopped returning their calls. Case closed. You're free. Free? The word echoed in my mind for days. What did freedom actually look like when you'd spent 28 years in invisible chains? Therapy helped me unpack that question. Dr. Stone had me write a letter to my younger self, the one who'd learned to value productivity over personhood. The exercise left me sobbing, but also clear-eyed about how much I'd been carrying. Work gave me an opportunity I'd been too afraid to pursue in my old life. Neha recommended me for a 6-month project in Seoul, working with Cascade's Korean partners to implement a new system architecture. It meant relocating temporarily, learning a new culture, stepping so far outside my comfort zone, I couldn't even see the edges. I've never been out of the country, I admitted to Neha when she first suggested it. Perfect time to start, she said. You're not tied down anymore. Take the adventure. The old me would have said no immediately. Too risky, too uncertain. What if someone back home needs me? The new me filled out the paperwork that afternoon. Marcus sent one message 6 weeks after I'd left, "You ungrateful witch. Who do you think you are? We made you relevant. Without us, you're nobody. You'll come crawling back." I forwarded his message to David, who documented it carefully. Harassment might become useful if they tried legal action. Before I could make final decisions about Soul, reality delivered another twist. Emma, Olivia's daughter, somehow got my new number. The phone rang on a Tuesday evening while I was preparing dinner, and a small voice said, "Aunt, is that you?" My heart stopped. Emma? Mom doesn't know I'm calling. I took a picture of your number from her phone when she wasn't looking. She was whispering, clearly hiding somewhere. Why did you leave us? The question was a knife between my ribs. It's complicated, sweetie. Adult stuff. Was it because of Dad? He's gone now. He left and Mom cries all the time. Liam thinks it's his fault, but I keep telling him it's not. Her voice cracked. Grandma said you were selfish and mean, but you were never mean to me. You taught me how to ride a bike and you helped with my science project and you made the best pancakes. Tears streamed down my face. I love you very much, Emma. What happened between me and your mom had nothing to do with you or Liam. Then why can't you come back? We miss you so much. How do you explain to a 9-year-old that loving someone doesn't mean tolerating their mistreatment? That sometimes the healthiest choice looks cruel from the outside? That adults can fail each other in ways children shouldn't have to witness? Your mom and I need space from each other right now. That doesn't mean I stopped caring about you. Can I call you sometimes? Just to talk? Every instinct screamed to say yes. But Emma wasn't mine to parent. Creating a separate relationship with her would undermine Olivia's authority and potentially put Emma in the middle of adult conflict. I need you to ask your mom first. If she says it's okay, then yes, I'd love to hear from you. Emma's disappointment was palpable. She'll say no. Maybe, but sneaking calls isn't fair to anyone, especially you. Will you promise me you'll ask her? Okay, she said reluctantly. I promise. I love you, Aunt. I love you, too, sweetheart. So much. The call ended, and I sat on my kitchen floor, crying until Pepper climbed into my lap and licked my face. The choice to leave had consequences I couldn't control. Emma and Liam were collateral damage in a war they hadn't started. That reality hurt worse than anything Olivia had said or done. Dr. Stone helped me process the guilt during our next session. You can't sacrifice your well-being to shield children from their parents' choices. Olivia created this situation. The consequences are hers to manage, but they're innocent. So were you once, she reminded me, the child who was forced to parent herself and her sister. Nobody protected that little girl. You're protecting the adult she became. That's not selfish. It's survival. I sent Olivia a carefully worded email. Emma called me. She misses me and I miss her. If you're open to supervised phone calls once a month, I'm willing to participate. This is about her needs, not ours. Let me know your decision. Olivia's response came 3 days later. How dare you go behind my back to contact my daughter? You lost the right to be in their lives when you abandon us. Stay away from my children. I forwarded the email to David with a note for documentation purposes. Then I blocked Olivia's email address and changed my phone number. If Emma tried to call again, she'd reach a disconnected line. The cruelty of that necessity made me physically sick. February in Austin was gray and wet, matching my internal weather. The Seoul project was scheduled to start in April, giving me 2 months to prepare. I threw myself into learning basic Korean phrases and researching neighborhoods where I might live. The distraction helped, mostly. Ethan noticed my distraction during a code review. "You've been staring at that screen for 20 minutes without typing anything." "Sorry, personal stuff." "Want to grab coffee and talk about it? Or grab coffee and specifically not talk about it?" "I'm good either way." We ended up at a tiny cafe that served ridiculously expensive single-origin coffee. Ethan ordered something complicated while I got a simple latte. Then he waited, not pushing, just present. The story spilled out: the dinner, the departure, the lawsuit, Emma's call, Olivia's email. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. "My brother stole $50,000 from me," he said when I finished. "Forged checks, elaborate lies, the whole deal. I pressed charges. He went to prison. My parents disowned me for destroying the family. Haven't spoken to them in 6 years." I stared at him. "You never mentioned that." "Because I built a life where it doesn't define me anymore. The first couple years were rough. I questioned everything, wondered if I should have just absorbed the loss to keep the peace. But you know what? I sleep fine now. I'm married to an amazing woman. I have friends who don't steal from me. I work at a job I love. Meanwhile, my brother's on his 3rd stint in rehab, and my parents are still enabling him. Do you regret it?" "Every day," he admitted. "And I'd make the same choice every single time." Regret doesn't mean you were wrong. Sometimes it just means the situation was painful, no matter what you chose. His honesty gave me permission to hold contradictions. I could miss Emma desperately and still refuse contact through Olivia. I could love my family and reject their mistreatment. I could grieve what I'd lost while building something better. March brought unexpected warmth and cherry blossoms that transformed Austin into something magical. The hiking group did a special trip to Lost Maples State Natural Area, where waterfalls crashed through old-growth forest. Standing beneath a rushing fall, feeling the spray on my face, I experienced something close to joy. Chloe caught me smiling. "Whatever you're thinking about, keep thinking it. You look peaceful." "I'm thinking about how I didn't know life could feel this way." "What way?" "Light," I said, "like I'm not carrying weight that's slowly crushing me." The Seoul preparation intensified, work visa approved, apartment secured, language lessons twice weekly. Neha walked me through what to expect professionally and culturally. She'd done a similar rotation 5 years earlier and loved it. "The team in Seoul is brilliant but reserved," she explained. "They'll appreciate precision and attention to detail. Show up exactly on time. Participate actively, but don't dominate, and you'll do great." My last therapy session before leaving was bittersweet. Dr. Stone had helped me rebuild my sense of self over 7 months of hard work. Now I was heading into another uncertain situation, but this time by choice. "You're not running away anymore," she observed. "You're running towards something. That's growth. What if I mess it up? What if I can't handle being that far from everything familiar? Then you come home and try something else. You're not trapped anymore. Remember that. Every door you walk through, you can also walk back out of." The hiking group threw me a farewell party at Ethan's house. 20 people crowded into his living room, sharing stories and laughing. Chloe presented me with a custom map marking all the trails we'd conquered together. Ethan gave me a ridiculous phrasebook titled Survival Korean for Socially Awkward Programmers. Speech, someone yelled, and suddenly, everyone was looking at me expectantly. Public speaking had always terrified me. But these people had seen me cry about blisters, complain about steep inclines, and laugh until I couldn't breathe. They knew me as I actually was, not as someone's useful accessory. A year ago, I was living in a house full of people and felt completely alone, I started. I thought that was just how life worked. You showed me different. Thank you for letting me be part of something real. Thank you for teaching me that belonging doesn't require sacrificing yourself. I'm going to miss you all terribly. The applause felt genuine, warm. People hugged me with real affection, not obligation. Sarah slipped me her cousin's contact information in Seoul. She's an artist, kind of weird, but she knows all the best ramen spots. Flying out of Austin felt surreal. Pepper was staying with Chloe, who'd fallen in love with her and had already set up a dog bed in every room. My apartment was sublet to a colleague for 6 months. My storage unit held a few possessions I couldn't part with. Everything else I needed fit into 2 suitcases. The flight to Seoul was long and contemplative. Somewhere over the Pacific, I realized I'd stopped checking my phone compulsively for messages from family. The phantom weight of their expectations had finally lifted. Whatever happened in Korea, it would be mine alone. My success or failure, my adventure, my choice. Seoul was overwhelming in the best way. The efficiency, the courtesy, the organized chaos of millions of people moving through shared space with choreographed precision. My apartment was tiny by American standards, but perfectly designed, every inch serving multiple purposes. The Cascade team welcomed me with formal politeness that gradually warmed into genuine collaboration. My counterpart, Rin Tanaka, was a genius at database optimization who spoke careful English and appreciated my attempts at Korean. We worked long hours, but with clear boundaries. When the day ended, it ended. Sarah's cousin, Aya, turned out to be exactly as advertised, weird, wonderful, and possessing encyclopedic knowledge of Seoul's food scene. She dragged me to hole-in-the-wall restaurants where I ate things I couldn't identify but absolutely loved. She introduced me to her artist collective, a group of creatives who met weekly to work on projects and discuss everything from politics to philosophy. "You're too serious," Aya informed me after our 3rd outing. "Very American. You need to learn to just exist without purpose sometimes." She was right. I'd spent my entire life being useful. The concept of simply being present without productivity attached felt alien and essential. We spent an afternoon in Bukshan Hanok village doing absolutely nothing, sitting, watching people, existing. My Western mind kept trying to categorize it as wasting time. Aya just smiled when I confessed this. Time you enjoy wasting is not wasted time. Write that down. The house sold in 42 days. The market was hot, and I'd priced it competitively. After paying off the remaining mortgage and covering David's fees, I cleared a profit of $380,000. The money went straight into investment accounts I'd set up through a financial advisor in Austin. Olivia sent a desperate message when she received the sale notification. "Where are we supposed to go? We have children. You can't just put kids on the street." I didn't respond. They had adequate time to secure alternative housing. Marcus's parents owned a large home with plenty of space. Olivia could get a job. They'd figure it out. My parents actually did try to sue me. They claimed I'd verbally promised them lifetime access to the home. David demolished their case in preliminary hearings. There was no written agreement, no financial contribution from them, and no legal basis for their claim. The judge dismissed it with obvious annoyance at wasting court time. That lawsuit cost them $18,000 in legal fees. They blamed me for that, too. Austin suited me perfectly. My new job was challenging and rewarding. Colleagues actually valued my contributions. Nobody expected me to handle their personal problems or fund their lifestyle. I joined a book club, started taking pottery classes, and adopted a rescue dog named Pepper who adored me unconditionally. 3 months after leaving, I was having coffee at a downtown cafe when my phone rang from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "It's me." Olivia's voice sounded hollow. "I'm calling from a friend's phone because I know you blocked mine." I said nothing. Marcus left. Her words came out flat. He emptied our joint account and moved to Arizona with some woman he met online. I'm staying with his parents because I literally have nowhere else to go. They blame me for everything. They say if I'd been a better wife, he wouldn't have cheated. Mom and Dad won't help because they spent all their savings on that lawsuit against you. Still, I remained silent. The kids ask about you constantly. They don't understand why Aunt disappeared. I've had to get a job at a grocery store because I have no recent work experience. I'm 33 years old, living in my ex-in-law's basement, working minimum wage, and co-parenting with people who despise me. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Because you were right. Her voice cracked. About everything. Marcus was using us. I was using you. Mom and Dad enabled all of it. I destroyed the one person who actually gave a damn about me. I don't know what you want me to say, Olivia. I want you to let me apologize. Really apologize. Not the fake kind where I'm just trying to get something from you. You deserved better than how we treated you. I'm sorry I laughed when you set boundaries. I'm sorry I never defended you against Marcus. I'm sorry I took advantage of your kindness until you had nothing left to give. Okay. The word came out automatically. That's it. Just okay. What else is there? I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the foam swirl. I accept your apology. That doesn't mean I'm coming back or that things can be fixed. You spent years treating me like a resource instead of a sister. That doesn't heal with one phone call. I know, she sounded defeated. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. I hope someday you can forgive me, even if we never speak again. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. Did I feel vindicated? Partially. Did I feel sad? Absolutely. The situation was complicated in ways revenge fantasies never capture. Olivia was suffering, but she'd also learned consequences existed. My parents had lost their scapegoat and their lawsuit. Marcus had shown his true colors. Everyone had gotten exactly what they'd earned. 6 months later, I received a letter forwarded from my old address. Inside was a drawing from Olivia's daughter, my niece Emma. She'd drawn a picture of me holding hands with her and her brother Liam. The caption read, "I miss you," in crayon letters. Tacked behind the drawing was a note from Olivia, "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for money or help. I just thought you should know that I'm teaching the kids about boundaries and respect. I'm making sure they understand that love doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment. I'm trying to be the person you deserve to have as a sister. Even if it's too late for us, maybe they'll grow up better than I did." I put the letter in a memory box. Maybe someday I'd be ready for limited contact with my niece and nephew. Maybe not. The choice was mine now, and that itself was healing. My life became beautifully ordinary. I dated occasionally. I got promoted at work. I traveled to places I'd always wanted to see. I built friendships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Pepper and I hiked every weekend. I learned that peace doesn't always look like triumph. A year and a half after leaving, I ran into Aunt Laura at a conference in Denver. She'd been one of the relatives who'd condemned my departure. We ended up at the same networking event, and she approached me cautiously. "You look happy," she said, studying my face. "I am. Your mother won't admit it, but she regrets how things went down. Your father, too, though he's more stubborn about it." Laura shifted her weight uncomfortably. "I wanted to apologize for judging you. I didn't know the full story. Most people didn't." I kept my tone neutral. "Olivia's been going to therapy. She talks about you sometimes, about how she wishes she could go back and do things differently. Marcus trying to drain her bank account before leaving apparently made her realize what you've been protecting her from. I wasn't protecting her. I was protecting myself by finally leaving. The distinction mattered. Fair enough. Laura nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm glad you chose yourself. Not enough people do. We parted amicably, but I didn't exchange contact information. Some bridges weren't meant to be rebuilt. 2 years after the infamous dinner, I received a wedding invitation. My college roommate, Grace, was getting married in Dallas, just a few hours from Austin. I RSVP'd yes immediately. At the wedding reception, I found myself genuinely laughing for the first time in recent memory. The joy was uncomplicated by resentment or obligation. I danced without worrying about who might need something from me. I celebrated someone else's happiness without calculating the cost. Grace pulled me aside during a slow song. You're different, lighter somehow. I stopped carrying weight that wasn't mine to carry. Good for you, she said, squeezing my hand. You deserve to be this happy. Maybe I did. Maybe everyone deserves the chance to walk away from situations that diminish them. Maybe family doesn't always mean loyalty. And maybe sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destruction. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Your parents dropped their appeal. Case is officially closed. You're completely free and clear. I smiled and slipped the phone back into my purse. The legal battles were finished. The emotional ones would probably continue in smaller ways for years to come. But I built a life that didn't depend on anyone's approval or forgiveness. That dinner table moment when Olivia screamed at me and my parents laughed had felt like the end of something. Looking back, it was actually the beginning. Sometimes you have to burn down what's broken to make space for something new. I stayed at the wedding until late, dancing with strangers and toasting to love. When I finally drove back to Austin that night, the city lights welcomed me home. Pepper would be waiting at my apartment along with my comfortable couch, my book collection, and the quiet life I'd built from scratch. Olivia had demanded an apology I'd never given. Instead, I'd given myself something far more valuable, permission to leave. Sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty is simply refusing to participate anymore. My face had burned with humiliation that night at dinner. Now it glowed with contentment. The transformation took time, distance, and the courage to say all right to an ultimatum and mean it as goodbye. I never did apologize to Marcus. I never needed to. What would you have done in my place?